Let's talk about the A Word. I have spoken about this show so much in the past, so I don't really need to reiterate what it's about too much, but the basics of it. It's a BBC One drama that focuses on a family, youngest kid's autistic, but it's so much more than that. It's brilliant. It's absolutely beautiful. I love it. And I wanted to share my love for it in some way. So I thought I'd do something special to celebrate kind of the end of season 3. If you're watching this on the day it uploaded, that was yesterday, the finale aired. This chat, it's got some spoilers in it, but if you haven't seen season 3, I'd say it's still watchable. Like, it's not too spoilery, but I wanted to discuss it with other people. You've seen my friend Travis on the channel before, but I didn't just get Travis. So we've got Travis. It would help if I knew my left and right. We've got Travis, who plays Mark on the show, but then we've also got Lee Ingleby, who plays Paul, the dad on the show. Lee's actually briefly been on the channel before in a vlog at one of the comedy nights from NAS, just like in the dark. But yeah, anyway, we're gonna have a chat about it. We had a Zoom call, and it's a really fun, nice, long conversation with lots of juicy, interesting stuff about the show. So sit back, get yourself a cup of tea, and I hope you enjoyed this chat. I'm now joined by Travis George and Lee Ingleby. So I'm saying this as if it's live and people are clapping. We can do the clapping. And
Thank you.
I've just got to start it off by saying, Lee, you've actually got to be congratulated. You were the first person to ever appear on my channel that I own as an official Lego figure.
There you
So
go.
there we go.
Yeah, that's good.
There we go. We can have little Lee can stay down
It was
there.
one of the honours of my life to be a Lego figure.
But yes, so we're in my makeshift background because I moved my room around and forgot that I set up somewhere for filming. But I don't think anyone can complain with a Lego Death Star.
Never.
So it's all good. I think we should take it back to the beginning of when you both started on this A Word journey. So Lee, you were in it right from the beginning. What was your first? How did you first hear about it, and what were your first thoughts when you heard it was going to be a show around autism?
Well, I'd worked with the producer before, Marcus, and he we'd finished filming. We worked together on a project called Our Zoo, and he just got in contact and said, "There's something you should look at. I think you'd be perfect for it. Have a look. It's not an offer, but something you should push for." And so he gave me this sort of treatment for a script, which was the A Word. And I don't know, it was just something that, well, I knew Peter Bowker's writing straight away because I'd seen a lot of his stuff and was always a bit of a fan. And so married with that, I just thought, yeah, I definitely want to read it. And so I read the first couple of scripts and it was just right up my street. It was something that it just sang off the page and it just had heartache and humility and it was funny. And actually, it wasn't a drama that seemed to be on telly much these days. You know, it's just about people and people trying to be people and understanding people. And that was it. There was no car chases. There was there's no murder. You know, it was just about a family. And I just thought, oh, I'd love to do this. And so I really pushed for it. You know, I really worked hard. And you know, I had to go in and meet the director and Pete and yeah, it was for me, it was just something that I just really wanted to do.
And then Travis, we've kind of spoken a bit about how you came into it on my channel before anyway, but do you just want to briefly summarize that again for just in case people haven't heard?
Well, I started off, I came in series 2, great honour, obviously, and I started off as a fan of the show, if anything. I told myself what it represented. I heard about it before I actually got the opportunity to audition. And I told myself after the audition process, no matter what, whether you get it or not, you will watch this show because I gave me that incentive to want to watch it. And I loved every single second. And it was right after binging series 1, as soon as I got home from the audition, that I was lucky enough to find out about a month or 2 later that I got the role. And it absolutely changed my life. And obviously I love every second. I love everything about the show. I love what it represents. I love the real life family aspect to it.
And it certainly is extremely beautiful and true to life, and I absolutely love it. I was actually late to the party as well. I didn't see the first series when it aired. I saw it when I saw the casting call for Mark, but we know how that went. But it went to the better person. It's all good.
but I binged it, and it was in the time just after I got diagnosed, and of course I was wanting to consume everything autism at that time. So to be welcomed into that world with a show like this was just it was good to see that there was something right from the beginning of my own personal journey. And I think that first series, I think we need to talk about how Paul, your character Lee, dealt with it so well. I often feel that, like, this is generalizing a lot, but it's the fathers that can normally struggle with the whole diagnosis thing more. So how was it to, first of all, to get yourself in the mindset of being a parent whose child is being diagnosed with this condition, which they potentially never heard of, to then have that contrast to the second series where Paul starts to get uneasy about it?
Yeah, I think that's what I really liked about it as well. It doesn't go where you expect it to go. I think that's the best thing. And I love the flip, the fact that Paul's going, listen, it's fine, we'll deal with it, we'll learn to understand it. And then 2 years later, everybody else seems to have moved on and sort of progressed forward of how to communicate with Joe, and Paul starts to go the other way, where he's starting to struggle, and it's almost like it's like a delayed reaction in a way. And I thought that was really, really interesting. And initially, I didn't want to, because I did a radio play. God, it was a while ago now, where I played somebody with Asperger's, and
Right.
so
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. I was kind of sort of early 20s, and and so I did a bit of research and went to the National Autistic Society, and I met a family, and I found this guy who I wanted to base it on, and so I sort of chatted with him and followed him around for half a day, and so I had a bit of experience with it, but I didn't want to know too much as Paul, in a way. Like the whole sort of the process of going through the diagnosis and what it's like in that respect. So I'm going to layer, because I started reading loads and reading accounts and talking to people, and I thought, actually, I'm arming myself with too much information in a way.
Yeah.
And I wanted to discover it, because we kind of filmed it episodically in a way. The first 3 episodes we filmed at once, and then the rest we did chronologically. And so I didn't want to know too much, so I pulled back on the research a little bit and saw it through Paul's eyes the best I could. Paul kind of, in his sort of bombastic way of going, make a joke out of everything, and everything will be fine. And the beautiful twist for the second series where he's struggling completely.
I think it was just so fresh to see, especially with what else was coming on screen within those same couple of years. So series 2 aired in 2017, where we had other shows like Atypical and The Good Doctor, which I've voiced my opinion on in the past. I don't think they did stuff quite well in the first series. They've both improved. It's all good. But yeah, I like my whole thing with the A Word. It's always been the freshest of it all and the most real. And I think one of the best parts about the entire show is actually the dynamic between Paul and Mark, which of course that works out quite nicely. And I like, of course, Paul gets introduced to Mark in season 2, and he gets that direct comparison of Joe, who's autistic, and Mark, who's autistic as a teenager. Now, Travis, of course, again, something we've touched on before. You are the first autistic person to play an autistic character on screen, as far as we're aware.
Yeah, I people still of the word pioneer at me, and I still don't know how to react to it. I don't know. I'm sure I'm not the first person to do it, but in terms of how it's
mainstream, definitely.
Yeah, in terms of how it's been publicized, people actually knowing about it, it appears I might be the first one. I still try to wrap my head around that, and I think I tried not to put too much pressure on myself to get that fully right, because I think if I actually thought about that while I was filming it, I probably would have done the thing. So yeah, but I think, like you said, the dynamic between Mark and Paul, it's something I think it's something that was really fresh. Really, you wouldn't have seen that from any other characters, and I think it's something that was done in such a realistic way. Do you think it was like a father kind of son? Or do you think it was like just a mate thing? What do you think? Because I saw it as like they were giving understanding to each other in some way. Like Paul was getting some sort of understanding to what the struggles he might have with Joe.
Yeah,
and whilst
exactly. I think especially later on when their relationship developed, you know, because he had a relationship with Mark's mum,
Sophie,
and sort of introduced to Mark through that, and you know, and sort of witnessing when Mark has a meltdown in the second
yes.
series, and I think that really sort of opened Paul's eyes to, you know, especially, you know, seeing a single parent dealing with it, and how she dealt with it, and just the reaction to it. And I think it shocked him a little bit, and then from that point, I think what he wanted to do was understand Mark. In order, it's almost like a projection of going out. If I can understand Mark now, then I'll be able to. It's almost like having a head start in where to go and what will happen. Well, and then I think through that developed almost like a father figure, but also, you know, a friend, an older brother, maybe. I don't know, but with father sort of tendencies.
I almost think it's like an uncle type thing. So like not quite fatherly, but not quite.
Yeah. There's definite care and a really willingness for him to go on his own, but then not allowing that. So when it comes to it, like, you know, taking Joe out for a day trip, not being able to go, oh, okay, he'll go, oh, do you know what I mean? So it's so there's a long way for him to go, and I love that scene with the whole journey of Mark going to the army and Paul trying to figure out what that is, how to deal with that, and sort of snapping at Mark, going, I'm just trying to understand, and you're not allowing me to, you know.
Well, this is the thing, like that episode 2 of season 3 is by far my favorite episode in the entire series. Of like, as in, out of all 18 episodes, it's by far my favorite episode. And I don't think, like, we've very much seen how nice people are to people on the spectrum in the previous series, but to see that you can still get it wrong, as in, not wrong, but you can be a bit like, oh, I don't know what you're trying to express to me, because especially us as autistic adults, you know, like anyone will vouch for me that I know, I don't speak sense most of the time. You know, it's good if I can get a sentence out in English. If I'm stressed, you've got no chance. So to see that it can be a bit that it's not always quite as easy. And one of my things which
sorry, go on.
You were saying?
I was going to say, the fact that Mark or Paul aren't the oracle of how to deal with it, how to talk about it. You know, they're both kind of sometimes fumbling in the dark and making huge mistakes, but are actually sort of being honest with each other, which is probably a shock to themselves. Sorry, I completely interrupted you. Go on.
Oh, don't worry. One of my favourite things that you got to say, Lee, in that episode was the fact you got to make a joke about autism. It was the whole rabbit thing. It's definitely not autistic, you taking the rabbit, which I don't think people quite realise how groundbreaking that is. We never actually have a taking the mick out of autism. It's always either making fun or you know, so we've never actually had that until that line on screen ever, which is mad to think about. But the other thing,
sorry, I keep interrupting.
This is the thing with Zoom. It keeps. You've got no chance of testing things. Right, Lee, you go, and I'll go.
I was just going to say, and that's what's so magical about Pete Bowker's writing is, you know, it's not just people going, oh, isn't this brilliant or isn't this awful? It's it goes about it in a very different way, like the whole sort of conversations that Paul and Alison had in some of the early episodes, where they've been brutally honest about what they think. Like when Paul says, I hate his autism, I hate it. You know what I mean? And it's a moment of, you know, observing two people who say things like, you know, it's just verbal kind of, I need to say this because if I can't say it to you, who can I say it to you? And this
exactly, like, I'd only need to bring my sister upstairs to start ranting about how she's like, oh my God, you do my head in sometimes, you know, I can't, you know, why can't you just be like any other 22-year-old, etc. It's realistic, you know, and that's what I like about it. Going back to that episode 2, Travis, you get to explore in that, which is a very interesting concept.
Yeah.
Mark suddenly decides he's no longer autistic, which, of course, as autistic adults, we go through this whole identity thing with autism, and how much it defines us, etc. So, what was it like dealing with that little storyline?
I find it very relatable. I'm not, even though Mark is from series two to series 3, there is a big change. Everyone has moved on in that time. The characters have evolved. They've gotten older. Obviously, their mindsets have changed. Like Mark wants to go in the fucking army. I found it very relatable in the sense that there are some times where there are struggles for having autism, and there are things you just don't understand. There are things that you just want to. Sometimes you think it would be easier if I just ignore this, and if I just, the want to say, no, I'm not autistic anymore. This ain't happening anymore. I'm not autistic. I'm just like you. Blah blah blah. It can be easy to just throw that out the window, and I think my interpretation was, I don't think you need that label per se. I don't think the label needs to define you in that way. Like, yes, Mark has autistic traits, like they say at the end, some more than others, but in a way, I think, like I said, it doesn't have to define him. Mark is still a person. He still has dreams. He has aspirations. He has things he wants to achieve. And whilst it's good to have some sort of understanding of that and be able to come to terms with those things, the positives and the negatives of having autism, it's good to love yourself regardless of that, and to know that you can achieve the things you want. Like, for example, Mark, I'm speaking as a, because it's all on BBC iPlayer now.
Yeah.
The people.
Oh yeah, we're in. This is going up the day after episode 6 anyway.
Yeah.
Good.
So, for example, Mark, he tried the army. It didn't work out. He was clearly distressed, really disappointed. But the fact is, he found his way in the cafe. He worked his way out. He found happiness regardless. So, whilst there are things that you might, for example, there are things I've wanted to do because I was autistic, and it just didn't work out. It's not necessarily, I'm not saying it didn't work out because I was autistic. Things just didn't work out. And you've got to find happiness regardless of the struggles, regardless of the things that come with being autistic. You've got to love yourself regardless of that stuff. I am kind of rambling right now, but
don't worry.
It's essentially what you just said encapsulate what happened in episode 2, isn't it?
It's the whole journey.
That journey within a weekend being away at the army, discovering what it all means,
And like, this is the thing. I really think, that whole, to see that journey portrayed over the series. Well, really, you get it all in episode 2, but kind of expanded on episode throughout the rest of the series. I believe it will really help a lot of people on the spectrum to because I get so many people coming to me with that negative mindset of like, it's not working out because I'm autistic. It's like, yeah, it's the same with anybody. We just need to try and find our path. Autism's a guideline, not a rule book. That's what I always say. It can just mean it's a little bit harder to get to that end goal, but you just have to go against everything. I want to kind of take it out of the show for a minute, because both of you have done stuff with the National Autistic Society. Not because, like, in my eyes, you both do enough by simply portraying these characters on screen. So what was it that made you both want to do stuff beyond that?
Well, for me, I don't know. I think I'm just because I love doing the show, and I love the writing, and I loved the research, and we get a lot of help with parents and representatives of the Autistic Society itself. That I don't know. I was having a conversation once, and it just came up of I just said, if there's anything I can do of the limited sort of knowledge I have of being an actor and having experience with autism, it's whatever I can do to help. And it's just sort of developed from there of just doing a few Q&As and sort of visiting like me and Travis both went to visit a school that kind of heavy in the arts, how good creative and performing arts can really sort of bring people out of their shells anyway, so it's so for me it was just sort of, if there's anything I can do, because you know, I love the show and I love everything that it represents, you know.
As somebody who's also involved in the National Autistic Society, I'm very grateful for that. And Travis, have you got anything to add to that, or?
It was right after series 2. I was asked to do a few interviews, and I was getting flooded, literally flooded, man, with messages and comments on social
I
media.
remember.
It was crazy, man. I was, when I first did the A Word, I was this very socially awkward, kind of like recluse. I was very scared. I just got out of school. And I left school with nothing. I'll admit it. I didn't get any GCSEs. I didn't know where I was going. I knew what I wanted to do, but I had no idea how to get there. As soon as series 2 was over, I was getting flooded with messages with people thanking me of all ages, people my age, people older, people who have children, thanking me for being in the show and portraying Mark. And that was crazy to me, and it opened my eyes as to how much autism means to people, and how much, like, because before then I didn't know what autism was all about. I knew I had it, but I really didn't understand it. And there was a time before the A Word where I didn't want to know about it. I wanted to pretend like it didn't exist, like Mark in series 3. I considered my autism a hindrance before the A Word because I just didn't understand it, and so far it hadn't brought me the things I wanted. I didn't get it. But after the A Word, all of this opened my eyes to how beautiful autism can be and all the positives that come with it. And it wasn't until I saw the massive, beautiful community that's surrounded around autism that came with it, like the National Autistic Society, that I found a new love for what I was. And it was through the A Word and through getting involved with these people that allowed me to embrace myself and to love myself for who I am, regardless of the struggles that come with autism every day. So I knew that as soon as I started hearing the words like inspiration from these people, as soon as I started hearing that I was helping these people by being on the show and saying the things I was saying in these interviews, I knew I wanted to be a part of it. I knew no matter how complicated it might be for me to be on that stage, no matter how complicated it might be sometimes for me to like speak and form sentences in a coherent way that I'm okay with.
We all have it. Yeah.
Exactly. At least if there's just 2 people in that audience that I can help by telling my story and giving them hope for their children or for them, it's worth it. It's totally worth it, because the show and their beautiful kindness helped me in so many ways. So if I can give that to other people, I'm all good.
And it's also really sort of lovely to see. I mean, the difference between Travis beginning of series 2 and Travis now. I mean, you really have, but yeah, you've come on leaps and bounds in your confidence, and you're like an old thesp, you know.
Oh.
Like I've been doing it for years, and but yeah, I remember speaking to you and your mum when you had to do the meltdown in series 2, and and I was going, are you nervous about it, and you were kind of going, well, I'll sort of draw on previous experiences. And then your mum was saying, it wasn't long ago you were, like you said yourself, you were kind of a bit of a wallflower. Your confidence was massive, and it's so lovely to see the change and what confidence can do.
And I need to say it is. I hate to just throw it all back at you guys, but it is down to the A Word. It's down to my experiences with the A Word. The A Word changed and saved my life in so many ways. Because not only, go on, mate, go on.
I think what you're both saying, all this stuff, is just so encompassing of what everybody says about how much of a family this whole project is. It's not just another TV show. It really isn't. Everybody looks after each other, and it's so nice to see. Well, just having you two speaking like that, it really does show it. And anybody who's not still, for whatever reason, not won over by the show, I really hope that just seeing this is something that can help open their eyes to it.
Believe in me.
I think the Zoom time is going to start shouting at us soon. Something did pop up saying they've removed 40 minutes, but still, just in case. So sorry to have to chop you off a bit there, Travis, but you can come on the channel anytime and rant. You go for it. I say rant, go for it. So is there anything that either of you want to just say to kind of close off to, because let's face it, the story has left itself as at like kind of quite a nice end. It could end there, it could continue. If it is the end and we're never seeing A Word again, how do you want this show to be remembered? Deep question.
Well, I mean, I don't want it to end. I think
I don't want it to end. I want more.
But I don't think you need to we don't need to it's like next year and next year, I think we can, like we have been doing it, giving it a couple of years, because what's more interesting is to see how Joe's developed.
Definitely.
And how the family have developed through that, so we don't need to pick up from where we left off. We can come back to it at a later day and see where Joe is as he starts approaching adolescence and growing pains start to kick in, and a very different time in a young person's life, how things, understandings, body all starts to change.
Oh, that chapter. Yeah, I'm sure Travis can vouch as well. That plus autism is
yeah. So if we could continue, and I think we'd all be up for it if we could. But it's if it was up to us, we'd all be signing on the dotted line. But it's all you got to wait and see, haven't you? It's beyond our control. But no, I just hope that it resonates, and I hope that it is that thing. I mean, I remember I was at a gig in North London somewhere, and just this guy came up to me and just said, watching that episode, I was Paul in that episode, wanting to say, but I couldn't because I can't. I'm not allowed to. Yeah. But I looked at my wife and went, what he said, and it's really sort of powerful because sometimes you forget that it affects people the way that it does, and whatever the drama is, things really do resonate, and if it can resonate for the positive, then I think we've all done our job really well.
Oh, well, that makes me feel so warm as well, because I want it to be something which people on the spectrum or families of can always go to, because I think it really is that thing that's got it right. And Travis,
it's just a keyhole, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's like looking through a crack in the window. It's not saying this is the be all and end all. This is the way it is. It's going, look, this is a story, and it's, I think, very honestly told, and it's yeah.
It's beautiful. We can all gush over it all day.
Just to pick up on what you said, I watch these episodes and I think about I'm thinking back to when we were creating it and all the cast and the crew, and then I think about the fact that there are millions of people actually watching this as I watch it as well. It all becomes real when you're scrolling through Twitter and social media and you're seeing fans posting about their opinions on the scenes and how it's resonating with them. They're saying, oh, I feel like that, or I feel just like Paul right now, or oh, I feel just like these people. And it really resonates with you, and it reminds you of how much of an impact this show is really having on people's lives. And I think it speaks for how realistic the show really is, because there is no this character is this or this character is that. Every single person who watches it, seems from what I'm seeing, has a completely different viewpoint on each character. They have a completely different opinion and everyone has their different viewpoint on these characters and their experiences through their own. I think that's beautiful. As a fan, as well as a cast member, I looking at it from both perspectives, of course I want this show to continue. If I got a call next week saying series 4 is planned and it's going to happen, I will be on it. I would be ready. I would be so excited. But as a person who, if this isn't the case, if it's time to call it a day and just wrap it up on series 3, I think, as many people have said already, both people I know and people I've spoken to who I haven't met, it ends in such a beautiful, hopeful, positive way. And I think that the way it's ended now, if it does end now, I think the show will be remembered for something that tells a beautiful story and spreads the message of love, kindness, and understanding to everyone, regardless of disability or anything.
And that's what we need in the world right now. Love and kindness, not to get all preachy, but we all know what we're saying. And cool, right. Well, thank you both. Well, first of all, just thank you both for being part of such an incredible show.
Thank you.
But also, of course, both thank you very much for the various things that you've helped me out with along the way. Like Lee just sharing my season 2 interview like a couple of years ago. That got loads of people watching it and looking at and listening to the autistic voices who were watching the show. And then, of course, Travis, I've thanked you enough behind the scenes. You don't need any more on screen. It's all good. But cool, right. Well, so thank you both very much for coming and chatting. And it's been an absolute pleasure.
Likewise.
So there we go. That was our little Zoom chat about the A word. I really enjoyed doing that. They're both such lovely people. And that's actually not all. So if you head to Autism Assemble, you will find there's 2 more exclusive clips coming in the next week of stuff that wasn't in the interview. We filmed separate little bits for it. So go and find that if you want some more. But obviously massive thank you to Lee and Travis for being in it, and I really hope you all enjoyed it. Cool, thanks, bye.